Good morning, Manila. Good morning, TMI world. I am cartoonist Ted Rall. That over there is Manila Chan. You are tuned into the Ted Manila Information Show. That's TMI for short, where we bring you what we call, TMI, too much information. That's anything from news, sports. Actually, there probably won't be any sports. Weather, probably very little weather. Politics, lifestyle, culture, fad diets, what the kids are up to, the taboo, the occult, anything and everything goes, because we think you can never have too much information. And if you're here, you probably agree with us. If you're looking for that straight-laced, button-down news program, that show is this show. This is not that show, and that show is probably going out of business soon anyway, so you're probably stuck with us. This is stuff you know you want to hear, and some stuff that you never knew you wanted to know or needed to know. Hopefully we'll be chuckling and chortling and guffawing along the way. Those are fancy words, thesaurus words. We're laughing. We're live here on YouTube and Rumble, and we're going to be working to see if we can do X Spaces, but you can find us live here and talk to us in the feed and everything Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So please be sure to like and follow the show. If you're not around to watch live, totally understandable, mean boss, whatever, or maybe you're like me, self-employed, and your boss is a lunatic, then you should definitely tune in later, and you can always stream it on Rumble or on YouTube. Please support the show. Please follow the show. Please consider some financial support as well. That's what's going to make sure that we can keep doing it. Otherwise, it'll be just one of those, it's gone. All right. The Ted Manila Information Show starts now. Okay, I'm warming up to that. But Manila, we have to edit that little pause at the beginning.
It
really bugs me.
That's the great part, is that it's a cliffhanger, and then you see the jaws come in, and then you're like, oh, okay, Manila and Ted are not lost. Like they're there, and the show's
we may be lost. We might be lost metaphysically, but
in other ways.
We're lost in America, like the Charles. What was his name? Charles Brooks, Albert Brooks.
Albert Brooks.
I think that's his first movie, and it's really good. Anyway.
Well, let's speaking of first, that lady. Let me go back to her. Right. Well, not that lady. This lady. That's Susan Wiles. President-elect Donald Trump has announced that lady, Susie or Susan Wiles, one of his two campaign managers. She is going to become the chief of staff, entrusting a top position to a political operative who helped this Republican, I guess. I feel like that's not even an appropriate political brand for Trump to call him a Republican, but I guess technically that's what he is. She helped propel him into office. So this appointment was the first of what's expected to be a flurry of staffing announcements as Trump prepares for a return to the White House on January 20th. As gatekeeper to the president, the chief of staff manages the White House staff, organizes the president's time and schedule, gatekeeper, and maintains contact with other government departments and lawmakers. With the low-key Ms. Wiles, she's 67, by the way, she will be the first woman to serve as the White House chief of staff, because Trump hates women. So he's going to put her in this position of power.
This is the job Rahm Emanuel used to have.
Yes.
It's a job that's famously thankless, very difficult.
Yes.
And basically
you wear a lot of hats, really.
And you're the gatekeeper to the president of the United States. Everybody who's even the vice president's trying to get in to see the pres, you're the person who's deciding whether or not you get in and how long you get and all that. And this person, you can really say literally they're kind of making policy in a backwards way, because they're deciding who gets in to pitch their
access control.
So it's a quiet job. Very few people know that, if you asked people at gunpoint, name 3 former chiefs of staff, I bet 95% of people who follow politics couldn't answer that question. It's not it's a low profile. I think if you're in journalism, the comparison is managing editor. It's that job.
That's true. That's fair. That's fair. She looks, though, like a lady that would crack the whip and keep everyone in line. She kind of looks the part.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely isn't spending a lot of time on her hair. And Joe Biden wants aviator glasses back, by the way. We know you took them, Susie.
Yeah, but she looks the part. I'll say, if you're going to be, like a hard charging gatekeeper, she looks the part.
Donald Trump would probably see her more every single day than any other government official. So
that's true.
That does say something
about.
True. Yeah, the whole idea that he hates women is stupid. But anyway,
it's very stupid. But anyway, what he says is Susie is tough, smart, innovative, and is universally admired and respected. I have no doubt that she will make our country proud. So Trump is considering a wide array of people for top jobs in his administration, many of them familiar figures from his 2017 to 2021 presidency, sources say. There's some names I hope I never, ever have to see again associated with the Trump administration, but that's for another topic. Ms. Wiles, a longtime Florida-based political strategist and fellow campaign manager Chris LaCivita are credited with running a more disciplined operation for Trump's third presidential bid.
Clearly.
With his past campaigns. Yes, I would agree. Trump thanked them both during his victory speech early on Wednesday. Quote, Susie likes to stay in the back. Let me tell you, Trump said as she stood toward the back of the stage. We call her the Ice Maiden. New Iron Lady, Ted? Is that what? I mean, she kind of has that vibe, right?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say, right? I mean, look, I thought the most key phrase there is when he said, oh, she likes to keep in the background. That's what Trump never is, like a lot of politicians, but, with him, it's not surprising at all. He really doesn't like anyone to threaten overshadowing him or becoming the story. He's like, I'm the boss. I'm the star of the show. And you're not, so don't make it about you. And he tends to reward people who know their place, do their job, and plug away, and that's it.
Fair. Yeah, I think that's fair. Moving along, this guy here in the hot seat. So Jerome Powell doesn't seem to mind a rematch with Donald Trump. In fact, he seems up for the fight. The Federal Reserve Chair was abrupt, adamant, and maybe even a little angry when asked whether he would resign if asked by the president-elect. The pair don't see eye to eye. Trump wants the president's, the seat of the presidency to have a say in monetary policy, while Mr. Powell has championed the Fed's full independence. Powell's not going anywhere. His job will undoubtedly get a little tougher, though, when Trump returns to the White House in January. Powell made it clear that the central bank will not make any assumptions about Trump's policy changes in a press conference after the Fed cut rates by a quarter point just yesterday. Data dependency will remain the name of the game, he says. So the Fed can't and won't be able to completely ignore the prospect that Trump's spending plans and tax cuts could stoke inflation. So I don't know. I mean, Jerome Powell, I think during Trump's first term, a lot of people. What do I hear happening outside your window?
God, that's people working who've been
like welding or.
Yeah, apparently they're scheduled only during my radio shows. They would only come on during the final countdown, and now they're only on during the TMI show. I think if we scheduled our show for 3:00 in the morning, they would be there.
They would.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. It's been forever. Do you remember Michael Douglas in that show? What was that movie called? Falling Down.
Falling Down is one of my favorites.
And it was toward the beginning, he's stuck in traffic and he decides to get out of his car and confront some highway workers. And he's like, admit it, like this highway, I've lived here for 20 years. This highway is always under construction. It's never going to be fixed. ever, right? Like this is, it's like, admit it. And then he pulls a gun on the guy. He's like, it's true. It's just like the city council. We have a deal with them. We just keep working on it. And it's like,
Oh my God.
it feels like, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, there's scaffolding in my neighborhood, and it was in the New York Post. They did an article about how there's literally a continuous row of scaffolding for 3 miles through my neighborhood. And it's because they basically, it's easy to get the zoning permit to put it up, but you can't get the zoning permit to put it down. So it's up there for like decades. And then if you get a big storm, pieces and bits of stuff fly off and hit and kill people. So
oh my God,
their cars. It's very messed up. Anyway.
Okay, because if I can hear it, the audience can hear it. So it's best we address and let them know what's going on. This is beyond your control.
If it keeps up, I will shut my windows. It'll help a little bit, not much.
It's not the neighbors, then it's the city outside. So there we go. So
it's
Jerome Powell,
what do you want to do? You know,
I know Jerome Powell. We saw in Trump's first administration, Ted, he sat on the near zero for way too long. I would say, which is part of what he was part of the reason the Biden administration saw so much inflation, and it kind of damaged Biden's, I guess not legacy, but at least the last 4 years for Biden, because he decided somewhere in the first year that, okay, now's the time to take my foot off the brake and just let it go. And the car goes flying, and we're suddenly at, like a 5 or 6 basis points when we're near zero for 4.5, 5 years, and the housing market was going crazy and all of that. And then suddenly nobody was able to buy anything because, taking out a 30-year loan meant you're, on a $300,000 house, a median home price in America means after 30 years, you're paying millions of dollars for this house based on the rate and loan you got. So that kind of slowed everything down. Then eggs start costing $1 each, and it wasn't good. I don't think he's been a great Federal Reserve chair. I think Janet Yellen, who was, by the way, the first woman Fed Reserve chair, I don't think he's done better than her. I think he's actually done worse. And if he wants to stick around, I feel like that's out of his own pride and desire to, I don't know, make some sort of legacy for himself. I don't know.
Nah, I don't think that's true. I mean, look, let me put it this way. Yes, everybody has interest in their pride and their legacy. But I think, in his mind, and probably, look, there's a strong case to be made that the Federal Reserve Bank needs to preserve its independence. I mean, if I were him and I was in his situation, I would, even if I was ready to retire and go to Tahiti tomorrow, I'd stick around through the transition for like a year just to send the message to the White House that the Federal Reserve does not board does not serve at the president's pleasure. It's an independent organization, and the president does not appoint them and hire and fire them at will. Otherwise, the president of the United States is essentially setting fiscal policy. Now, we can argue about whether there should be a Fed. I know lots of libertarians who don't believe in central banking and all that. But the point is, we do have a Fed. If you were the Fed, the system we currently have is that it's independent from the White House. And so I think he's trying to make a stand for that.
Yeah, again, I would say that plays into pride and legacy, and there are rumors now.
Powers, right? That's what it's about.
I agree, but there are rumors now that Ron Paul is suddenly now in the mix in Trump world, and we know how Ron Paul feels about the Fed. So
isn't Ron Paul like 5 million years old?
I just physically met him. I've talked to him several times in interviews and stuff. I finally met him ahead of the.
He's 89 years old.
He's turning 90.
He was born 3 months after my dead mom.
I know. He's
okay.
Sharp as a tack, in real sharp, not like
he's
Joe Biden sharp.
He can't be the Federal Reserve Chairman. Sorry.
No, he's not. I'm not saying he's going to be the Federal Reserve Chair, but I'm saying that he's now in Trump world, and in my wildest dreams, that I think Ron Paul could or would be the Federal Reserve Chair, which would be funny because then he would just dismantle the entire thing.
Well, if he lives long enough, I mean, if he doesn't die like the next day. I mean,
Oh, he's so cute and
he's
so sweet
89
and
years
so
old. No,
smart.
that's not going to be the case. Are you kidding? The
It's
U.S.
not gonna happen, but
The signal it would send to international financial markets. I mean, goodbye U.S. dollar, right? I mean, are you kidding? Like, no
he's
way. Can't be Ron Paul.
I think it would be if you really want to upset the apple cart, you have Ron Paul
Don't upset
talking
the
to you
U.S.
about
dollar. That's like
fiscal
insane.
monetary policy. Ted, there's no coming back for the US dollar. I don't care who's in office. I think with the BRICS currency coming in, the BRICS bucks, as I say,
Oh,
there's no
you know,
saving the US dollar. This is
I
a
was just
fucking
thinking
burning
about that
ship.
this morning. I'm literally thinking,
Burning ship.
look, you know what? Honestly, if I'm not sure. I mean, like BRICS could be completely like cut off at the knees if two things happen. If Trump lifts all the sanctions against Russia, and he doesn't follow through on the tariffs against China, that's it. Then there's no reason for BRICS to happen. And like they might just say, well, in the future, it's good to go on. That would be my move if I were a member of BRICS. I'd say, never mind. We don't, just because things are okay right now with the Americans, we don't know how long that'll last. We saw what they did under Biden. We should continue. But the point is that they might, you know, human nature is that they only act when they're confronted with a crisis.
Sure.
And BRICS was
And they
confronted
have
with
to.
a crisis. They had to. And so,
Right.
but you know, Trump could give them a reason not to.
Really? I don't
Yeah, I mean, seriously, if the sanctions go away, if he says,
No,
like,
I don't
we
think
won't
so.
weaponize the dollar as a reserve currency anymore, we're not going to seize all these
No,
assets that we
he's
seize
talking
in
about
return.
slapping tariffs on everything.
He's
60
talking.
additional percent. I know, but he's like, I love tariffs. Tariffs are beautiful, the best tariffs in the world.
He
And
talks. He talks.
if he does implement the tariffs like he did with the trade war that he started with China, that President Biden
I think it's a negotiation.
continued,
Sure. I mean, by the way, I agree with this
maybe,
whole. I agree with
but
this.
that's
whole
all the
where
more
he
reason
comes
that
out.
the BRICS bucks should exist.
I agree about that's the style to negotiate. Ask, like, push hard, go aggressive. You end up in a better place in the end. I mean, that's just true about negotiating, and I think that's always been his take. He's made that very clear. I think that's what's going on here. But anyway, we have more headlines to get through.
Yep.
So
Let's get to the next one. There's a lot to talk about there with Jerome Powell, because obviously that's, you know, bread and butter issues, and people want to know what's happening with the money. But something else people might want to know about is droughts, because, you know, you kind of need water to live, I think. It could be like, you can drink, what is it, Mondo? You watch the movie Idiocracy?
Brondo.
Brondo.
It's got what
Brondo.
plants crave. It's got electrolytes.
That's right. So dry and unseasonably warm conditions in the Northeast, where Ted and I are, have plunged much of the region into drought, fueling wildfires in New Jersey and Connecticut and Massachusetts. That's like not normal. That's normal for someone like me from California. October ended as one of the driest months on record in the U.S., according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, better known as NOAA. The Northeast, in particular, saw scant precipitation. Cities such as Philly, Newark, New Jersey, Wilmington, Delaware, that's where Biden is. I think maybe that's why they didn't get rain. And Norfolk, Virginia.
His dry old skin sucked up all the humidity.
That's right. His dusty ass. And Norfolk, Virginia recorded no rain at all in October, which is wild. And you know what, Ted? I'm looking outside my window right now. The leaves have changed. I see that fall is here, but the sun is beating down on us because it's been like 80 degrees for the past week. Like I can go outside in shorts and a tank top and be totally fine. And I'm a California wuss. Anything below 70 degrees is cold for me. And I've been outside and sweating. Like, this is not normal in November. So, like,
it's not normal. Look, when I first moved to New York City in the early 1980s, you could get snow in October. Snow in November for sure. No, it would be weird
for
not
sure?
to. And you know, right now it's like the temperature is going to be. Yesterday was in the mid 80s. I'm wearing shorts right now. It was in the 19. Today it's going to be around 90. It'll be about 60 degrees. Now people are like, oh, it's much cooler today. That's going to be so great. Okay, 60 degrees is way above normal for this time of year. Or I guess the normal has changed, and it's terrifying. it never rains anymore. And rain in the Northeast was something you never thought about. It wasn't like drought. I never heard of a drought in New York ever before.
No.
You know, and I've been here since 1981. It just doesn't happen. This is, you know, water levels in the reservoirs are down. I'm scared of what's going to happen when this goes on in 2 or 3 months and all the water from the Catskill Mountains is dried up. New York City is going to have no water. It's a metro area of 28 million people. You know, I mean, we can't just be drinking rosé every day. I mean,
Lies, Ted, lies.
It's bad. And, you know, there's no already Mayor Eric Adams has imposed drought restrictions. Right now they're voluntary. That probably won't last. You know, part of the problem is, of course, also a half of the water from New York to New York City leaks into the ground from 100, 150, and even 250-year-old water mains that are, you know, some of them are clay and were built by the colonial British administration. So, I mean, this is old infrastructure here, and it's rotting away, and basically they don't fix it until like they explode in the street and flood a street, and then it's like, okay, we got to fix that one. So
that's how that works there.
It's only
I've seen all those images.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, according to the Southeast Regional Climate Center, which collects precipitation data from more than 1,400 weather stations across the country, several cities, including Philadelphia and right here in Washington, D.C., set new records for the number of consecutive October days without any measurable rainfall. Quote, "This is a region that we don't typically associate with drought," said Benjamin Cook, an adjunct research scientist at the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory in Palisades, New York. I've never heard of that. Palisades, New York. Quote, "To have such persistent periods of really intense drought conditions is not very common." Yeah, I would concur. I don't know where that place is, but yeah, it doesn't sound very normal. So
yeah, it's just north of New York. It's just north of New York City.
Oh,
I mean, this is like it's really scary. I mean,
is that what this looks like now? Like north of
honestly, you know what it looks like? I've lived in California and spent a lot of time in California. As you're from California, it feels like California. It feels like a Mediterranean climate now. All the time. I mean, it's like every day.
So it's not swamp fast anymore in the summer. Like you don't get swampy.
Oh, yeah, we get that whenever we get like the hurricane air coming up from the Gulf. You know, the same thing you guys get there in DC. But it's like, it's you know, it's kind of like beautiful. And you know, I've always said that that humanity and Americans in particular would definitely have taken climate change far more seriously and treated it like an emergency and got rid of their SUVs if the temperature had been going the other way around. If we were going colder, we'd be like, screw this, we have to act, this is terrifying. You know, it's like it's the tundra. But
because everyone likes warm weather.
People like warm weather, and especially the people in power are old. They really like warm weather, right? So I think that's my take. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it.
That's a pretty fair assessment. Yeah, if it went the other way, it was cold. People would be like, "What the hell is going on here? Why are we freezing over? Fuck this."
Yeah.
Fuck this. But
no one
warm,
really cares. They don't really think it's a problem. You know,
snowbirds. You know, there goes the snowbird industry, I suppose, Ted.
Well, and the ski industry. I mean, it's really like all skiing in the Northeast now is artificial snow, all of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Look, there were ski resorts in northern New Jersey. You know.
Oh, I never knew that. Okay, I see our guest is here.
By the way, looks like we're back on Rumble, so that's good.
Oh, good. The Rumble, we should address that. So the Rumble feed was having issues. We couldn't get the live video going, even though the show was actually going. I'm trying to get the feed. I can't see the feed though on Rumble. So YouTube it is, I suppose. For this.
Well, maybe it might take a little while to. Anyway, YouTube is still, YouTube is going.
Yeah, YouTube is there. YouTube is there, so you guys can go there to at the TM Info Show on YouTube.
Got a couple more articles, a couple more news stories to hit before we bring in Rob. So we should hurry up and do those.
Yeah. So all right, what you're looking at there. The UN Human Rights Office has just reported that nearly 70% of the fatalities it has verified in the Gaza war are women and children, and condemned what it called a systematic violation of the fundamental principles of international humanitarian law. The UN tally since the start of the war, in which Israel's military is fighting Hamas militants, includes only fatalities it has managed to verify with 3 sources. Counting continues. The 8,119 victims verified is a much lower number than the toll of over 43,000 provided by the Palestinian health authorities for this now 13-month-old war. The UN breakdown of the victims' age and gender backs the Palestinian assertion that women and children represent the largest portion of those killed in the war. So now that's proven accurate. Women and children, 70% of the war dead. This finding indicates, quote, a systematic violation of the fundamental principles of international humanitarian law, including distinction and proportionality, the UN Rights Office said in a statement accompanying the 32-page report. So I think anybody that has even, skimmed over any of the video footage, I mean, how can you miss it if you're on social media at all? I think it's fair, just from, as my old editor would say, just taking a quick squiz of what's happening in the war, you already know instantly that it's mostly women and children. So,
and proportionality is an important principle that has been lost in the debate over the war in Gaza over the last year or so, right? I mean, one of the people who defend what the IDF is doing keeps saying, well, Israel has a right to defend itself, and no one sane disagrees with that. And, it's kind of like, okay, well, but what constitutes defense? I mean, it's kind of like almost like in, people who have borderline personality disorder will say, well, I was triggered. This person did something, so I responded. Well, that's true, maybe, but you choose how to respond. And then there's some responses that are insufficient, others that are, Goldilocks, just right, and others that go too far. And clearly, this is a war of retribution. And it is, even Yoav Gallant has said at this point, this is part of the reason he was dismissed, is he told Prime Minister Netanyahu, this war has gone, there's no reason to be in Gaza anymore. We've achieved all our military our objectives. We need to pull out of the Philadelphia corridor. And, that's obviously, there's other things at work here in terms of domestic Israeli politics that are affecting this whole situation.
Yeah. We'll leave that there. We'll move on to our next topic. Big old boats. The SS United States, that's what you're looking at there, was once the fastest ocean liner on the planet, if you can imagine, crossing the Atlantic Ocean eastbound in 3 days and 10 hours back in 1952. The rusting famed vessel will be heading to its final resting place next week at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, because that sounds really great for the environment, Ted. Great.
Well, they do that all the time.
I know.
They think they make reefs.
I know. Efforts to save and restore the SS United States ran aground after a $800,000 back rent dispute with the pier's landlord in Philadelphia. The SS United States Conservatory sold the ship to Okaloosa County in Florida's Panhandle for $10 million in October, according to WPVI. The ocean liner will be transformed into the world's largest artificial reef, meant to serve as a tourist attraction for divers to visit in Destin, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. The site will also feature a land-based museum and visitor center to honor the ship's history. This will also involve the SS United States leaving Philly for the first time in over 30 years. It'll take 2 weeks for this ocean liner for her to be towed all the way to Mobile, Alabama, where she will be prepared to be sunk. All types of vehicles have been put out to pasture as artificial reefs over where Ted is. The New York City subway sent over 1,000 retired Brightliner cars to multiple areas off the Atlantic coast. However, many of the cars began to disintegrate after only a few months. Hopefully, the SS United States will last longer. So I have mixed feelings about that, Ted. I just feel like putting this giant ship or the train cars from the subway into the ocean. These are man-made. A lot of this stuff is man-made materials. It's got chemicals in it. There's no way you could 100%, have been that thorough and abrasive enough to remove all unnatural threats to the natural environment by sinking these things. I don't feel like that's like a great way to
All the paint,
dismantle or get rid of it. Yeah, like that's
the paint, the
not good for
rubber.
fish.
No, that's not. No, it's true. It's all that. This
Can't
seems
be.
like another colossally stupid idea. It's dumb. And I mean, the train. You're right. The subway cars was the same sort of situation. It's weird. I mean, honestly, I look at that and I'm like thinking that thing would have made an awesome like nightclub or hotel, right? Some
Yeah.
old cruise ships have been turned into hotels.
Some sort of residency for homeless.
Remember Peter? What's his name? Peterson from SNL. Like he and one of his buds from SNL bought or were trying to buy a disused Staten Island ferry.
Pete Davidson
to try to turn into the world's most annoying man. To try to turn it into a nightclub. I don't know whatever happened with that. I think they did buy this old Staten Island ferry. I mean, it's a cool thing. Look at it. I mean, surely you could do something with it. I don't know, house migrants, something.
Right. Like I said, I feel like you could use this as housing.
It could be renovated, but whatever.
It could be, but somehow they were backed $800K on leasing their.
Send the Israelis $800,000 less money and just like. All right.
I know. There's no waste.
We should bring in our guest.
All right, let's leave that at that. But I think that's an interesting thing to look at there. So, all right. Okay. Let's move on. Let's hit the jaws and get a fresh start.
Okay. So bad. Okay. Anyway, so obviously, it's on Tuesday. The election left Democrats trying to figure out exactly why what happened. Yesterday, we had a conservative on to talk about it, former co-host Angie Wong of The Final Countdown. Today, we bring in someone from the left side of the aisle, my good friend and colleague, Rob Rogers. He's the former editorial cartoonist of the Pittsburgh Press and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He's twice been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for editorial cartooning. He was fired really famously in a national profile. We'll talk about that in a very high-profile firing from the Post-Gazette in 2018 at the height of the Trump administration because his editorial cartoons were critical of President Donald Trump. The publisher didn't like that, new publisher. In 2021, Rogers was awarded the Herb Block Prize by the Herb Block Foundation, something that I will never get, unlike the Pulitzer finalist thing. But anyway, thank you for joining us, Rob Rogers.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Can you hear me okay?
You sound
yes.
good.
Okay, great.
You sound very good.
Ted, don't worry. You'll get it someday. I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I don't want it posthumously, But
well, that's the way it feels like with the Pulitzer now for all of us, because it's been changed to a category that doesn't even include editorial cartooning in the title. So I don't know. It's sort of along with all of the newspapers that have dropped cartoonists, and it's just it's sort of a sad what's happening to our profession. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it is, and I know that we texted very briefly before the show, and knowing you as I do, I'm not at all surprised that you're feeling bleak, dark about the election results. So
dejected, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I mean, part of it, I was kind of thinking, this morning, we Americans, we make a lot of like a 4-point difference in the electorate, right? I mean, if this had gone so right now, everybody, and I'm guilty of this too, the New York Times headline, right? Like, this changes America's view of who we are. And a lot of, there's a lot of self-flagellation by some liberal commentators and Democrats. Bernie Sanders said, like, he pretty much like, I'm done with the Democrats. We have to start over, burn the whole thing down. Of course, he was reelected to a 6-year term, and he's 83 years old, so he gives no shits anymore. But but I mean, on the other hand, it's true that if this had gone the other way, if 2% of voters had decided to go toward Harris, we'd be having exactly the opposite conversation, where Republicans would be saying, you know, like, oh my God, how did we let the party get taken over by this madman? We were fools. Right. And so, I mean, do we tend to just sort of, are we overanalyzing this, or is this really as seismic of a result as it feels like?
Well, I think it is seismic, but I think it's also part of what I think happened was that, you know, Biden was unpopular. He waited too long to get out. Harris only had, you know, about 3 months to put on a campaign, and nobody can do that. I mean, that's impossible. All of that. But then on the other side, you have, I think what happened was, you know, it always is about the economy. That's been proven. And so people are going to, you know, vote their pocketbook. But I do think that there is this weird, you know, I think we live in a country that sadly is somewhat, you know, misogynistic, sexist, racist. And I think that has to be, you know, factored in. I think that's part of the problem. And it doesn't really leave Democrats with much room to do anything, because, I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to go to even further to the right than she was trying to do. I mean, she was trying to sort of go to the middle a little bit to the left of Biden, but still stay in that middle zone so she could, you know, appeal to the, you know, middle-class Americans. And I just think that it's kind of ridiculous to think that we're suddenly going to go all MAGA to the right to get those voters back. I think something is happening to the country that we're just not seeing. And it may take some sort of monumental, like, shift or you know, downturn in the economy, or in, you know, going to war or something that wakes people up to the fact that this is not the right track. You know, whether you agreed with, you know, all of Biden's policies or Harris's policies, the idea that we just suddenly elected a guy who wants to be a fascist and has said so on many occasions, and all of the things he's promising to do are those of a fascist. And I just think that it's going to be a very dangerous time right now, and it'll be, you know, it's too soon to, you know, make predictions. Well, I guess you can make predictions, but
that's what we're here for.
It's too soon to know how far he will actually go with all of his, you know, all of his retribution, as you put it. As you put it, you said that about Israel, but it's also true about Trump. I mean, that's what he wants to do. So yeah, I think, I mean, but as far as the Democratic Party, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I don't really, I mean, there's been a lot of this, you know, Monday morning quarterbacking, and people are saying, well, it all started, you know, I heard one guy say, well, it all started when Biden was in that debate and he said, I'm going to pick a woman, an African-American woman for my vice president. And people said he boxed himself in at that point. And
I agree with that.
You know, and then it's all downhill from there. I think what probably would have been the solution, you know, and again, this is Monday morning, but you know, he should have gotten out. He should have said, as soon as he was, you know, elected, or 2 years in, he should have said, I'm not running again. Like, you know, what's his name did. I'm blanking on his name.
LBJ.
LBJ. Thank you. Yeah. Like he did. And just say, you know, let's start the process. And then it would have been a more organic process. You would have gotten to know people. A campaign would have happened. You would have had a primary. You would have had different candidates running. And if Harris had still been the candidate, at least it would have been more educational for the voters, and it would have been a different kind of process.
And she'd be battle tested.
Right.
I mean,
And I think that was one of the problems, is that she was battle tested, but then as far as a presidential run, she wasn't, because she got out early. She didn't do very well. So I think that was a problem. And then, I mean, you can nitpick with
Rob,
how
can I pause you right there
Sure,
for just
go
a
ahead.
second? I mean, it sounds like you're kind of alluding to the idea that had Biden walked away sooner, that the DNC could have, put forth a real, actual primary where people could have, voted, who they liked, and at least they would have ponied up people that the public liked, at least, like a weather vane, we would know. But because that wasn't the case, do you think it's right or fair of the party to now go out and start finger pointing and trying to, say, well, it's the fault of the Latinos, it's the fault of this group or that group, rather than saying, well, look, we put up a candidate that, didn't actually win a primary. We didn't go through, even if it was a mad dash for a short, truncated process. If they had done that, maybe some more introspection. Why isn't the party doing that at this point, like they did after the Biden-Trump debate just a few months ago that led to Biden stepping down? They had a lot of introspection immediately. I mean, before Biden got off the stage, but there was none of that this time.
Well, I think partly it's because they're still in mourning, and it's been a shock, and I think there's going to be a lot of introspection going on. I know that certainly Democrats, I mean liberals in the punditry are certainly doing that, but yeah, as far as the Democratic Party, I mean they're I think you have some some Biden people that are
they're
blaming,
fighting with the Harris people.
Yeah, they're fighting with the Harris people and blaming them. But no, I think the Democrats, much like the Republicans were after, I guess it was Romney, we have to really do a deep dive and say, hey, we got trounced, and this is not working, whatever it is we're doing.
Can I ask you about what the Liz Cheney thing? Like so even if you follow the logic of, okay, we're trying to chase these anti-Trump Republicans, right. Liz Cheney doesn't get you any anti-Trump Republicans. It literally seemed like an unforced error. Like, you made your BFF this person who's maybe the least popular human being on planet Earth. And now, like, it's not getting you anything. Like, there's, it's alienating your progressive base. We now know that between 10 and 15 million progressive voters they sat on deliberately, people who normally vote. That's amazing to me. I mean, Hillary Clinton lost because between 3 and 4 million progressive voters didn't show up for her. This is many factors worse. I mean, and this campaign really seemed to run, it's so parallel to Hillary Clinton. And I know that Kamala had Hillary on speed dial throughout the entire process. I don't know why, considering that Hillary lost. I'd have Obama on speed dial if it were me. But, they were chasing a chimera, right? I mean, there aren't anti-Trump Republicans anymore.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I think you're saying they don't call themselves Republicans anymore. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just saying anti-Trump Republicans don't vote. They're still not going to vote Democratic. They're culturally Republican, so they'd rather not vote at all than vote for Harris. And I don't want to, by the way, I don't want to gloss over what you said about sexism and misogyny. I always think about Barbara Jordan, the late, great congresswoman from Texas who made herself famous during the Watergate hearings. She was Black, and she always said it was much harder to be a woman candidate than to be a Black candidate in the United States. I'm really interested in the misogyny sexism angle more than the race angle. We already had Barack Obama as president. He successfully reelected, still popular. We're kind of, I mean, you know, yes, he wasn't a descendant of slaves, but I feel like the friction has been kind of removed there. I think, you know,
but the whole birther thing and the whole racism against Obama was kind of what birthed Trump. You know, I mean, that is, and the MAGA movement. I mean, so even with Obama in there, I think that pissed a lot of people off.
It did.
And
the Tea Party.
And yeah, and so that's where we are. But no, I think you're right. It is more about sexism at this point, because really, I mean, that's two in a row that Trump has beaten, and his, in my mind, his reputation with women is just horrific. So you should look at him and say, no, you know,
well, could a better female have won, like Elizabeth Warren or someone like that? Amy Klobuchar. Yeah,
maybe. I mean, maybe. I again, I think if there had been a process, and if you know, I do think that both of those women, I had heard from friends and other people who said, yeah, I wish it was her instead. But you know, I think that having the amount of time and the way that Biden exited the race, I think she did as well as she could do. I think during that debate, she cleaned up. You know, I think she
won that debate.
No, dismantled him in a way that I think that not many other candidates could have done. So I think she did a great job there. I just don't think there's a whole lot of. I mean, there's certainly some criticism you could have about how she answered certain questions about her record and all of that. And of course,
also she hid out she had a 100-day campaign. She dithered for 40 days, right? I mean, we didn't see her. I mean, time was one thing, a luxury she did not have to waste.
Mm-hmm.
She wasted it, and it seemed like you know, the general feeling was that the Democrats had polled, and they had found that a generic Democrat would defeat Trump, and therefore they needed to run her as a generic as possible. And that was the fatal flaw of the campaign, because it became I had said this about a month ago, this is fixing to be a devil you know versus the devil you don't know campaign. And Donald Trump's definitely a devil, and we definitely know him. And the idea, I think at a certain point, even low intensity voters looked at all the messaging coming out of the Harris campaign about J6 and all that. It's like, we know all that, okay? We don't need to be, everybody's made up their mind about Donald Trump. Enough about him. What we want to know is we want to know about you, who you are, what kind of person you are, what are your policies. And either she couldn't or wouldn't articulate. I mean, every time she appeared in public, I felt like she was a defendant being deposed in a hostile,
I totally agree. I think that it was almost as if she was dumbfounded by the question, like, oh, I didn't prepare for this answer. You had so much, are you kidding? Like, people, you're running for president and you don't know that somebody's going to ask you about your opinion back in 2019, about fracking. You need to have an answer for that. And just to say my values haven't changed, that's so political, and that's so what people hate about politicians. And
they're weasels.
I mean, they just seem slimy when they do that. I mean, all she had to say was, listen, when I came into office, I was working with the president, and we met with a lot of people, and we heard from a lot of Pennsylvanians who make a living at fracking, and we felt like we could help the environment another way without doing that, or
she could just generically
any of her other answers,
she could have just generically said, look, I make no apologies for having held an opinion and then changed my mind about things.
Right.
If you haven't ever changed your mind about something, there's something wrong with you. And I promise you that I will probably change my mind about other things in the future.
Yes.
As I get more information. Why is that hard to say?
I don't know. But that seemed to be, at least for me, when I first started seeing her. I mean, her rallies were fine. Her, the message about I know Donald Trump. I know his type. That kind of thing, I think, was successful in the begining.
Mm-hmm.
But then
it was a good start.
Yeah, but you really needed to flesh it out more. And also, I mean, I think she did address the economy, but for whatever reasons, it wasn't connecting with people. And so she should have probably changed it up somewhere instead of just repeating the same thing over. I've got, childcare, tax cut. I've got housing, benefits, and price gouging. I'm going to work on that. I mean, it's all fine, but I think she needed to step into that a little harder. And,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, one thing that struck me throughout, and of course, you and I have known each other for a long time, so this is maybe just Ted Rall being Ted Rall. I always think that we have radical.
By the way, I'm coming to you from the Ted Rall guest room up on the third floor.
Awesome. Yeah. So I recognize it. I mean, so I always feel like we have radical problems, and radical problems call for radical solutions. But I think in this cycle, the voters agreed with me. The voters were, basically, she was running against a man who, for better or for worse, was offering sweeping, dramatic language and changes. I'm going to deport all the migrants, right?
Yeah.
That's going to reduce, only Trump can fix it. Like, big promises. And then going up against that with like incrementalists, like, well, I'll offer some people, not everybody, but some people, first-time buyers, not your second time. If you're second home, you don't get this.
Right.
And if you're like Armenian American, trans male to female, but not female to male, then you get like an $18,217. It was like, that was just, it was so granular. And I think people were like, kind of like, we're howling in misery out here in like Wisconsin and in Michigan, and in Michigan, our brethren in Palestine are being obliterated. And all you have to say is like, Israel has a right to defend itself. It was just like a lot of. That was the other one that just infuriated me was her answer on that. It just, Biden's answer too, when he was, before she even got in the race, when he would just say, we support Israel without question, and then I'm like, but we have leverage. We can save people if we use our leverage. Or at least we can try. We could try.
Yeah, or try. I mean, at this point, I think it's too late. I don't think, they've pretty much done so much damage that, I don't think if we pulled our missiles back at this point that, they probably have enough already. They could finish the job. Yeah,
I'm sure that's right. So what happens next? I mean, so Democrats obviously yes, they need to lick their wounds and they need to figure out, but in the meantime, they have to be a minority party in the House, probably in the House, certainly in the Senate. That they've got to figure out, can they work with the new administration at all? Should they? Or should they be, sort of pull a Mitch McConnell and just say, from the left, and say, we're going to block this president every step we can. We're going to be resistance 2.0 in a way that we were never really 100% resistance 1.0. Are they going to be in the streets? Are they going to just be hapless and hopeless? Are they going to try to pivot left, pivot right, stay the course? What do you think is going to happen?
But Ted and Rob, let me just throw this in there, is when we saw the Trump administration 1.0, everybody that lived through that economy saw all the filibustering that was happening in Washington, D.C. Bills were not passed. I think that was the lowest bill count ever in modern American history. And I think Americans can kind of see through that now, especially because the growth of, or the death, I should say, of mainstream media, then juxtaposed against the growth of alternative media. People are realizing, hey, wait, we elected these dummies to Capitol Hill, and all they're doing is filibustering and just trying to drag their feet and not doing anything for the people. I mean, isn't that something to consider now?
I mean, it is, but I don't think the people care about that. I mean, look at what happened with the immigration bill. I mean, I agree that it was too late. I mean, it was sort of like a Hail Mary, but the fact that they shot that bill down, even though it was a Republican bill, Nobody cared. Nobody cared. That didn't register with voters. I mean, they saw the commercials. They saw immigrants flowing over the border, to kill us, and that was all they needed. I mean, I think the filibustering stuff is for people that watch, cable news all day long, and I don't think that's going to matter. I think that the Republicans did it, and they still, they did it all through Biden's administration, and look where they are. I mean, they're in the White House again with Trump.
Well, I mean, so in terms of ideology, I mean, I feel like the Democrat, first of all, we are in the middle on foreign policy, we're in the middle of a dramatic political realignment on par with 1928 to 1932, where the more hawkish party has become the Democratic Party. The party, I mean, people who are old enough to remember Vietnam know that it's not like Democrats don't know how to do war, but it's like, it's definitely, it seems like the more skeptical, less militaristic party is the Republican Party now. It's Pat Buchanan's party, really. And I guess the question isn't there like an ideological inconsistency inside the Democratic Party to be kind of willing to deploy military force and engage in proxy wars and basically embrace violence at the same time that domestically you're the party of identity politics, and identity politics is fundamentally about, like, we need to respect and help out historically disadvantaged minorities like women and people of color and trans people and gay people. And I mean, that's about an opposition to people who've been the victims of violence. That's an opposition to that violence, right? So you're violent, you exude violence overseas, you're trying to push for kumbaya peace here at home. And that just seems like it's the two things just sort of, they don't connect. It's not to use a Kamala Harris word, it's not holistic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer there, because I think I agree with you. I mean, like, when you're talking about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, I was against both of those. I think we should have never gone in. I think we should have come home sooner. But when you're talking about, what to do about Ukraine or what to do about Gaza, I mean, I think that there's a difference there in terms of, like, what it would mean for Europe, especially with Ukraine and Russia. I mean, what it would mean for Europe if we just sort of said, and I think this is what's going to happen because Trump is in office. So he's probably just going to say, all right, we're pulling our money, you're going to have to make a compromise and give up part of your country to Russia. And I think that would send the horrible message to those who lived through World War II. I mean, I think it's not acceptable. But yes, it is a dichotomy to say, the Democrats are now the war, the hawkish party. I mean, but in a sense, it's more about, I think it's more about that America First stuff that comes across and at all costs, even if it
resonates, though. It resonates to me. I mean, I don't know about you, Rob, at all. We've never talked about this, but for me, if there's a single American who's wanting for $1, he's short $1.
Yeah,
I don't want any money going overseas. I just don't.
I don't feel the same way. I think that it's more complicated than that. I think that we have a system that is broken in some ways and favors the rich and the poor suffer, and we need to fix that system. But it doesn't mean we need to turn our backs on everyone in the world who is being oppressed. It doesn't mean we need to fix everything either. I mean, we have to be smart about it, but
yeah, we're not involved in Sudan, let's say. They're in the brutal.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's kind of like, okay, it's not the, maybe racism has something to do with that, but
maybe a little.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I agree with you. I agree with you on the idea that there's a lot that could be changed here that needs to be addressed, but it's sort of like, how long will that take because of our divided government, and does that mean in the meantime that we can't help, other fledgling democracies, around the world.
Do you think there's going to be any kind of places that Republicans and Democrats can work together on? I mean, in the recent past, infrastructure has long been considered one of those places. Republicans have long expressed an interest in reforming the criminal justice system to scale down the prison industrial complex, which is expensive and ruinous to communities and families. Are there could Democrats and Republicans maybe figure out something on healthcare? Because Republicans are weak on healthcare in a huge way. They were never able to repeal and replace. Right.
Can we point out that Medicare for All seems to have disappeared, just evaporated from the American lexicon the last 5 years, just evaporated.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are there things that basic that Democrats, I mean, and is it to the disadvantage of Democrats to be seen as helping Trump succeed in any respect? Or would it be better for them to trip him, put a stick in his spokes and watch him fail?
I mean, I don't know that we have the the numbers to do that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're going to win. I think they're. I mean, Bob Casey was just that race was called and he lost. So in Pennsylvania. So
that's 53 now.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
that's I don't 54.
I think it's 53, but yeah, but he is. I do think that. I don't think we necessarily have the numbers to do it. And of course, as a human being, my feeling is, screw them. Let's do the same thing they did to the Democrats. But that's obviously not productive and doesn't help us in the long run. I don't know what the answer is, because I don't know that there's anything that we can, unless Trump suddenly wakes up, tomorrow morning and says, you know what, I know it's all about retribution, but in the meantime, I want to have a legacy. So maybe I will pass that bipartisan immigration bill, or I might, do something, with healthcare. But did you hear? I mean, when J.D. Vance said, that Trump helped save Obamacare. I mean, maybe that's what he'll do. Maybe he'll say, I want credit for saving Obamacare, so I'm gonna make it better. I mean, but I doubt it. I just don't see that happening. But yeah, I mean, whenever there's a way to compromise on something, I mean, I think it moves the country forward. I do. And so if there are reasonable things that the Democrats can compromise on with the Republicans, then sure. But I have a feeling we're going to see a slew of bills that are, anti-trans, anti-immigrant, anything progressive. So I think it's not going to be good.
Rob, what do you think? And we'll let you go after this. I mean, are you really? You said you've expressed in the past concerns that, Trump is an authoritarian, maybe a fascist. Democracy was really I don't think from reading your work, which I do, I always read your work, that it's an exaggeration to say that you really believed that democracy was in danger under a second Trump restoration. Do you still believe that? And if so, how exactly would it go down? I mean, I think about, I'm a student of the rise of Hitlerism. He came to power electorally, and he was legitimately appointed by the president, Hindenburg, and he became prime minister, formed a government. But right away, within 6 to 12 months, he started moving to acquire absolute power over all the machinery of government. By 1934, it was pretty much done. How would it look here? Because we have so many checks and balances. You have divided government. You have a deep state infrastructure. You have the courts, and then of course the media and all. There's lots. The media is an enemy. So I mean, what? I don't think it. I
don't think it would be overnight. I think it would be a slow degradation. But I think that if you have even one of those branches of government that doesn't check the other, like the courts, for instance, you mentioned the courts. I mean, he's put so many judges on courts now, including the Supreme Court, as we've seen, that what really are the checks and balances. And he's also been given a free pass to do any crimes he wants to do now from the Supreme Court.
All the stuff just went poof.
Yeah, all of his other trials are gone, and he can start to do new things. I mean, he can. I mean, he joked about putting Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad. What's to say?
I got to push back on that one. That's not at all what he said.
What he said
was, say, let's put her. Yeah,
what he said was, you like war so much, let's put you in a war and see how you like it, basically.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right. But the gist of it was, let's point 9 guns at your face and see how you like it. I mean, that to me is a firing squad. But
no, but I mean, he wasn't saying he wasn't issuing a death threat to Liz Cheney. That's my whole point. Is that's how Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski characterized it, but that if you listen to what he actually said, was he used it as an example to say, if you point guns at anybody's face, let's see how they feel about it. So you can replace Liz Cheney's name.
It was part of a rant.
Anybody, really.
It was also a rant where he talked about like people in climate controlled offices in Washington sending
basically in your ivory tower
out to be killed.
Okay.
And how easy it was.
Yes, I only heard the isolated clip, and so I don't know what the full thing was. But I did hear him also say that you can shoot through the press, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. So
that's not cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically saying it's okay.
He says lots of things that are not
to shoot
cool.
The press. So yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things that he said, and then some of them it's just a matter of whether he will act on any of these and how soon.
And Rob, we have a viewer question for you.
Sure.
They're asking how Democrats define democracy. What is democracy to a Democrat?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for all Democrats, but
yes, today that's your position.
You have to now.
Well, I guess I could make it a personal thing for me. As a quasi journalist and cartoonist, we all depend on free speech and the ability to criticize those in power. So democracy is, to me, that's a benchmark of it, that you can do that and not feel like you're going to be punished or go to jail. And I also think that just when all three branches are checking each other, and there's some sort of legal and ethical accountability, and I think that. I think that it just means that we maintain our freedoms as Americans, and I don't know how else to put it, but that's what I think is definitely in jeopardy. At
least one Democrat's definition there,
right? And also it's if you look at an autocracy, for instance, I mean, that's what Trump keeps talking about. He wants to be able to punish people that disagree with him. He wants to be able to have all of his generals do exactly what he wants at all times. That's not a democracy.
Wait, I want to push back on that. Isn't it though? I mean, civilian control of the military is a fundamental basis of the American system. It always has been. I mean, the military.
Yes, but the military has the right to not go along with things that are unlawful, and what Trump wants is to continue to do things that are unlawful. But
yeah. So
I didn't come prepared with my definition of democracy. So
let me ask you
just a viewer question.
Let me ask you a cartooning related question,
sure.
And then I'll let you go. I promised to let you go earlier. Very quickly though. So so obviously you were a huge anti-Trump voice in political cartooning, and so much so that you came to national prominence even more in 2018 when the paper got a new publisher, and the publisher was
not a new publisher. The publisher is the same guy I've worked with for 25 years, and he loved my cartoons. But we did notice that he was a Trump fan, and my editor actually quit over it because he didn't want to endorse Trump. And but he kept trying to, you know, get me to do Trump friendly cartoons, and I wouldn't do it. And you know, and it wasn't like he said, if you don't do it, you're fired. He never said that. He just let me do whatever I wanted, and then he would grouse about it to the editor. But then he finally hired a new editorial page editor who was sort of the hitman. He was the one who was supposed to come in and put me in line. And that's when things got dicey. That was in March of 2018. I lasted 3 more months. I had, usually in a year, I would have 1 cartoon killed. I had 18 cartoons killed in that 3-month period. And the last 6 were all in a row. And then eventually I was fired. But no, it's the same publisher. He's still there. I mean, it's the same guy that hired me. I mean, it's bizarre. It just shows you the power of, you know, he's another sort of misunderstood rich white guy, you know, from Ohio and from Toledo. And he felt like, you know, that Trump was speaking for him somehow. You know, you know, he said things over the years that in the editorial meetings, we would all kind of go, what? You know, like he would say some racist thing, you know, and we would all think, he's just being crazy. But it turns out he actually, you know, feels that way. So
that's a shame. Well,
yeah.
I'd also, I know we promised to let you go, but I just got to point out that, you know, over the Trump years and now up to date, I feel like President Trump was the turning point for people's families and relationships. And if you're on one side or the other, that you actually lost friendships, or in your case, you know, job/friendship, over that lasted decades prior, that through all the turmoil of, you know, the Iraq War, Afghanistan. Yeah. And suddenly we had Trump, then we had COVID, and it seemed to break people's relationships apart, and the fabric of your friends and family just ripped apart because, and I'm going to put this on both sides, like either the Trumpers, you know, the MAGA people absolutely just loathe the other people on the left, and then the people on the left just found the Trump people disgusting and whatever, and the humanity has just been erased from our social fabric.
To the point, people are not going home for Thanksgiving anymore, right?
Yeah, right. Well, one good example is I belong to and Ted does too, the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists. And every year we would gather and we used to be able to just hang out with
10 of you guys.
Yeah, we used to hang out with conservatives and liberals, and, you know, we were all in the same room. We all appreciated what the other people were doing. We didn't disagree. I mean, we did disagree with them, but on the issues, but it was never a contentious thing. And now it is. I mean, it's like, you know, they don't come anymore to these conventions, or nobody wants to talk to each other, you know, because it's just too, like you said, I've lost several cartoonist friends over Trump. I mean,
it's too fraught.
Yeah, it's too fraught.
So obviously, you know, freedom means nothing left is another word for nothing left to lose. You don't have your Post-Gazette job anymore, so you don't lose. How do you plan to?
You've been unburdened.
Yes, that's right. Well, people have said that. They've said, you know, like, hey, you know, your stuff seems more on edge now. But so that's good. That's good.
That's good. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Rob, do you plan to do it? Just keep on keeping on, or do you think you might have a different approach? Like you have to come after Trump harder, or you know, is it more about his supporters, or is it about maybe, I don't know. But
I mean, I'm still reeling a bit from the whole election, and I'm doing my post-election cartoons, and so I'm thinking more about that. I haven't really thought about, you know, what's next, but I mean. I mean, people are in despair about this. My wife Sylvia, you know her, she's ready to leave the country. I mean, she is literally saying she can't. This is too much. She can't handle it. So that might be my next move, is to go to France and draw from there.
You'll be eating better anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Rob. Thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to meet you, Rob.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Please come back again soon. Rob Rogers is the former editorial cartoonist for the Pittsburgh Press. and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He's twice been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. You may have heard of that. He was fired from the Post-Gazette in 2018 for cartoons that were critical of Trump. In 2021, he won the Herb Block Prize issued by the Herb Block Foundation. Herb Block being, of course, the famous, brilliant cartoonist for the Washington Post.
And he would be turning over in his grave right now. What's going on at the Post?
No, that's true. Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy. He worked in the same office from 1929 until he died in 1990 or 1991. I mean, and so apparently, I never got to visit him there, but apparently,
no, I think he
is that not
didn't
true?
he die in like 99 or 2000?
Maybe that's right.
Wow.
I can't remember, but yeah,
but that office apparently had like, you know, sediment of old crap.
Oh, well, when I went to visit him there, yeah, I mean, he had like, you know, you could see like old sandwiches sitting amongst the files, and he had stacks of like newspapers and files. You know, he would
scary.
Yeah, it was frightening, but
super fun sight.
But it was fun to see him. But all right, well, thanks,
Rob,
Ted. Keep up the good work, and
take care.
Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Let's tell everybody who wants to follow Rob's work, go to robrogers.com. Are you on the socials also?
I am. You can follow me on Twitter or Facebook, either one, and Instagram too.
Cool.
And Instagram is good because you know, I have several freelance clients now that I post the links for most of the stuff, but you can't do links on Instagram, so you actually see the cartoon there.
Love it.
Very
so there
cool.
you go. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
See you.
All right. So that was fun and interesting, I thought. Rob's so cool.
Well,
I like Rob.
He's very nice. Just completely unrelated to Rob, I disappeared off the screen because I guess the Rumble feed broke. And I kept trying everything in my power. Producer Robbie did the same thing, tried to put it anyway. It completely broke and just stopped. The chat feed was in there, but the video feed was nowhere to be found.
Okay,
it was the whole.
We're sorry,
Rumblers. Sorry, guys. Of course, that's my preferred platform.
We might be able to upload to the Rumble, right?
I think so. We'll see. We'll see right after the wrap.
So
yeah, we'll see what happens.
If you want to watch it, you can do that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, as a playback. As a playback, probably as a video, but the live.
We'll have that up probably very shortly, I think. So
yeah, the live links were broken.
If you want to see all our beautiful faces.
Sorry, everybody.
Within the hour, Rob. Within the Robbie. Yes, within the hour. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us. I'll take us out. We do ask you to please subscribe, even on Rumble, even though Rumble disappointed us today.
Broken ass Rumble.
But we like Rumble. Rumble has a lot of pros for it. YouTube and Rumble, please subscribe. Become a paid subscriber on Rumble for $5 a month. You can do that during the rerun edition or whenever we're live, so we can keep doing this for you. If you're liking what you see and value in interviews like the one that we just did with the former Pittsburgh cartoonist Rob Rogers, please help us continue our work. We're fully independent. We rely on you as subscribers to help us not starve, and more importantly to you to keep us able to keep doing this and making the show better and better. Click on that button right below the Rumble feed to help support the show. Thank you to Putinbot Gaming for your support and moderating the chat. Go check out that gaming channel if you like gaming, or even if you don't. And we're here for you. And we will see you. It's Friday, something I've said before, but in my life, but this is in Manila's.
It's a Manila thing.
It's a Manila thing.
Friday.
And we'll be back on Monday, which is Veterans Day, November 11th. 11/11 on 11/11/24. So we'll be on the air on the anniversary of the armistice of World War I, which was famously at 11 o'clock in the morning at 11 minutes after on 11/11. It was 11/11/11/11/11/11/11.
Oh, I never knew that.
Very strange.
Very cool.
Anyway, thanks everyone
for joining. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Manila. Have an awesome weekend, everybody. And we will see you back here Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Take care.
Adios, amigos.